All right, this is how to build a coffin from scratch, a human-sized coffin, or a zombie, or vampire-sized coffin. This, of course, would be for Halloween, or theatrical production, or saying goodbye to a loved one. To start, we're gonna need a piece of plywood. It's gonna at least be the width, height of the subject you wanna build for. In terms of the texture or the look, this is the least important part. This will be the backing of the coffin, and when we trace it, we're gonna build up from that. Next, you're gonna rummage through and look for some 2x4s. Doesn't matter where you get them or how good they look. This will also be on the internal skeleton of the coffin, so nobody on the outside is gonna see it, so they don't have to match or anything like that. Depending on the type of coffin you wanna build, fence boards I've found are really, really good. They're a nice light material. Usually like the rustic look, something that looks like it was buried and then unearthed a la Dracula. Although this particular coffin that I'm making is going with a haunted house Victorian theme, and I was actually lucky enough to find some boards that actually had some light beige paint on it. So I'm interested to see what we can do with that. Basically, these are pieces of wood that you want to match the entire theme you're going to. We can also implement some finishing touches to make it either more distressed or less distressed, depending on what you want it to look like. This is extra scrap wood that I'm going to take apart to use as part of my 2x4s, because 2x4s are everywhere if you just look. This was something that was part of the gate structure, which did sell. We are trying to do this for as little overhead as possible so we can collect the most money on this job. So these are good screws. Let's use them. All right, we got our lumber set. Now it's time to draw out the etching of our design. Nope. All right, we got all our materials. It's time to draw out the shape of our design on the backboard. I'm using my longest fence boards to decipher where that angled cut is going to come at the top of the coffin, where it has those corners. So I made my lines, had a couple corrections, changed them up. It doesn't matter, just so long as you know where you're cutting. No one will see the lines. All right, here's our back piece, which basically is the template for the shape of everything. And now we're going to start doing the sideboards. Of course, the key to outlining this frame and making these boards contour these corners are these angled cuts, which don't have to be perfect. This is just the underframing. So long as it's got a decent fit, it will work. Now we're gonna take these free screws that we got from earlier, drive all these in and make it a solid frame. I like to pre-drill as if to not split the wood. You definitely want to pre-drill if you can get 2 drills instead of 1 and not have to continually switch out bits. Once I've secured the frame at all the edges, I'll take the backboard, put it on top. Basically, we're going to drill through from the backboard into the bottom part of our frame. Now we got ourselves the base. This is the bottom. And now the hardest part is done. Now basically what we need to do is build up to about this high with 2x4s coming up and leading to extremely similar set of cut pieces, if that makes sense at all. All right, I got the second frame hiked up on top of the first frame just to make sure it's gonna match. We wanna make sure that both sets of the frame, the lower and the higher, are just about as close as they can be to the same size and the same fitting. Boom, all edges done. 2 set frame pieces. All right, hopefully you got some 2x4 remaining. What I'm gonna do is cut some 9-inch joist pieces to go all the way across, mount it to the bottom, and what it's gonna do, it's gonna basically host the top part of the frame. This will create the skeleton. Once I make my first cut, I use it as a template. You did not see that. You can pretty much see where I'm headed with this. Now we gotta sink those down. It's just feet. It's all right. We use 10 different 2x4s cut at 9 inches. It just makes me feel good inside. This is a life-size coffin that we want people to be inside. We're gonna add some foam to the bottom part to make it kind of super comfortable, because being undead is kind of a bitch. I got a foam mattress liner. It's about 1.5 inches thick. We're gonna take the frame from the top part that we've not connected yet and use that as a template. It doesn't have to be perfect, because the cool thing about foam is it's flexible. Put a little backing down. Let's get to cutting. Don't open blades near your face at home. All right, the edges aren't beautiful. It is foam. It's going to compress against the edges of the initial frame. Let's go see what that's gonna look like. Oh, yeah. You know what? Taking a break. All right, done with the break. Time to attach the frame to the top This is the last step of developing the kind of wireframe that the structure is going to be built upon. Now you can see the effect. It's solid. All right, I got my boards cut and beveled. And I'm gonna use this spacer right here because if someone is gonna be in your coffin, you wanna give them some peek holes and you wanna give them some air holes so they don't feel too stuffy. Unless they're really undead, then it doesn't matter. As you can see, the boards are going on with a little bit of relief in there. You can reach out and scare somebody. Really liking the look. Don't know if you can tell, but I cheated the second board down a little bit thin so that the third board be nice and flush with the frame on the top, because this is where the door is going to come down. We got our side panels on with holes big enough to reach through, some air holes, a few imperfections. Now we're going to work on the face. I managed to find 3 boards that were painted all the way across. I had this little thing that used to hold like a light fixture candle thing, but I figured we could throw that across the face to give a little accent. And what I want to do with this picture frame is create a little sliding door for the face, which we'll probably have right about here. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. We'll just figure it out. Good talk. None of the fence boards are typically ever going to be as long as your coffin if you have a human-sized coffin. At some point around this bend, you want to break it off, support it underneath, and then continue with smaller boards to continue the run. What I like to do is I like to make brace pieces that are going to contour right inside this edge right here. I'm looking directly on top of this board. Make this line right here and just continue. Make sure it's straight and make sure this board does not move once you make those first lines. So there's our cut. For the bottom, I'm going to base where I'm going to put my crossboard on where this should end up. So I'm going to put another beam in and make my line cuts. My cut lines. Yeah. And you know what? We're going to have to make a frame for the back of our little sliding peep door. I'm sure there's a great name for that relates to prohibition. And we're getting a little bit of additional support for the door. Twing! So I'm going to secure this with some underscrews. Make sure that I get the right size so it doesn't go all the way through. And now I've moved the boards over so I can cut these lines that will fit inside the coffin but are supporting the structure of the door. It's pretty delicate right now, so I have additional boards to support the undercarriage. My carpenter friends would not approve. Well guys, this is day 7 of what turned out to be a failed tutorial, but a successful Victorian coffin build. I had to turn off the camera for a couple of days. My attempt at using this frame as a porthole failed. Without any further ado, I would like to unveil the Victorian style coffin and then tell you what I did to catch you up. Factor number 1 in building the door for a 6-foot coffin is finding fence boards that are long enough. In most cases, you're not going to find 6-foot tall fence boards available for free. So my fence boards came up to about this height right here. Am I lying? My fence boards came up to about right here. This is usually where you're going to structurally have a back brace to merge the first board and the second board. But we're also trying to hide that break in the boards to create the impression that these are going all the way through. This is what created the problem in me trying to mount this sliding door. It just was creating too many problems. This door is going to open and shut and we need it to be solid. So I did away with that I went out and shopped for this very nice porthole, which had the kind of arch that I was seeing in a lot of these Victorian coffins. This was a candle holder. This one was broken off, so I was able to get this for $6.99 plus 40% off the sale. This little cross stitching of the bamboo has these little reveals, so you can actually look outside the coffin and see who's coming. This is just part of one of those stylish frames. These little kind of French symbols and the fleur-de-lis, these crosses. And last but certainly not least, these silver spiked little fixtures of one of these little Halloween plastic gates. And I just basically cut off the spikes. This was actually part of a really cool plastic toy knife. It had all these cool engravings. Now so you can see that it's split in half. I undid the screws, and so you got two sides, and I made this nice little cross here out of it, which really brings it all together. Top crossboards, bottom done the same way. I hope you got something out of this, because the structure of the build is the most important. How you dress it up after that is particularly on you. And she's going bye-bye today.